This is Walk-Ins Welcome with Bridget Phetasy. I'm Bridget Phetasy, and you are welcome. You know the drill. Please subscribe, rate, comment, share, reach out, tell your friends, send smoke signals, whatever. We love your feedback and we want to hear from you. This week, our sponsors are Ritual and Calm. Ritual is the obsessively researched vitamin for women. Better health doesn't happen overnight, and right now, Ritual is offering my listeners 10% off during your first 3 months. Fill in the gaps in your diet with Essential for Women, a small step that helps support a healthy foundation for your body. Visit ritual.com/walk-in to start your ritual today. That's 10% off during your first 3 months at ritual.com/walk-in. Walk-Ins Welcome is excited to partner with Calm, the #1 app for sleep, meditation, and relaxation. For a limited time, Walk-Ins Welcome listeners can get 25% off a Calm premium subscription at calm.com/walk-in. That's calm.com/WALKIN. It includes unlimited access to all of Calm's amazing content that will have you drifting off to dreamland in no time. This week, our guest is Andrew Doyle, the comedian behind satirical Twitter account Titania McGrath, a radical intersectionalist, feminist, and slam poet who is constantly telling people how oppressed she is. He's the author of Woke, A Guide to Social Justice, and absolutely brilliant. So hang on, sit back, and enjoy this dissection of the culture wars.
Cool.
I am with Andrew Doyle, everyone. Welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I'm kind of starstruck because you have an alter ego online.
I do. Titania McGrath.
Titania McGrath. She is delightful.
Thank you. She's totally taken over my life.
I know.
Yeah. Total bitch. She's honestly, that's it now.
So I have to know, tell us a little bit about her, first of all.
Okay. So she is a radical intersectionalist, feminist, slam poet who she's very privileged, very rich and sort of early 20s, you know the type, and constantly telling everyone how oppressed she is, how victimized she is, but really she's just got everything on a plate. And there's a lot of people like this. Yes. She's one, and I suppose what I wanted to do was have her embody all of the characteristics of the kind of woke, the most vocal woke people who are the most annoying,
right.
The ones who basically feel that they can speak on behalf of everyone else,
right.
Anyone who's marginalized, anyone who's oppressed, and if they're not if they tell them they're not oppressed, they'll say, "No, you are. I tell you when you're oppressed," and and also I find it really funny when people are just offended and outraged by everything. Yeah. Even if they're right to be outraged, it's still kind of funny when someone clutches their pearls and says, "You can't possibly be like that. You can't possibly." I love that. Anyone who puts themselves on a moral high horse and says, "I'm better than you. I know better than you." You've got to take the mick out of them. I mean, they're just inherently funny people, aren't they?
And I feel like it's been easy to do with the kind of right-wing characters because they were traditionally the pearl clutchers. This is the weird time that we live in where I come from the left generally.
Me too.
And it's just like bizarro world seeing that these are the kind of morality tone, the people policing our language, the people telling us what's right and wrong. I'm like,
so
wait,
weird,
what?
When I was a kid, she won't be known here at all, but there's a woman called Mary Whitehouse. And when I was a kid, she was this very uptight, very religious woman who used to write to the BBC all the time, or used to write to people saying, "You can't put that play on, you can't put that film on, you can't do this," right? Because her view was that she became very famous, and her view was that it influenced the masses to behave badly, right? But that philosophy from this old right-wing fundamentalist woman has won out. But the people who are promoting it now are on the left.
Right.
It's so weird.
Well, the same here with the right. They were always the ones who were policing the sexuality. Policing all of I grew up when you couldn't play rap and there was like all the outrage about the rap music. And now it feels like that is coming from, and generally the left was kind of the like free speech warriors.
Yeah, used to be.
And now I feel more danger from them in terms of the totalitarian
It's happened so quickly. I mean, even within living memory, if you think about, I remember there was a time when Eminem was getting a lot of flack for homophobic language in his rap songs, right?
Yeah.
And all of the left and big celebrities were like, "No, you can't touch him. He's one of us, etc." Now it's a different story. He's gone woke, right?
He's doing like rap ciphers where he's throwing coffee at the president or whatever.
But now people are, I often see articles saying, he's great, but what about the homophobic language, the legitimization of anti-gay sentiment? And I'm like, it's a rap song, calm down. It's okay, right?
Yeah.
It's weird that it's shifted in such a short space of time. It is like 10 years, 15 years, no more than that.
When did we start taking everything literally too?
Isn't that weird?
Even art.
If you take art literally and comedy literally, you have absolutely no understanding of its fundamental premise, right? Mm-hmm. So it's so interesting to me that that's now considered the norm. The only people who ever did that in the past were idiots.
Yeah.
But now it's smart people who have bought into this. That's what really frightens me about it. It's actually, I see really smart people becoming stupid because of the woke ideology. They say stupid fucking things.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can't depict this. You can't joke about that because that isn't funny. Well, yeah, but the comic doesn't think it's funny. The jokes aren't literal.
No.
Do I have to even say this? The fact that I have to even say this is absolutely nuts.
That was like somebody today online was defending, I think it was ArcLight or one of these online, they're kind of popping up like Quillette-esque publication where you can have, they got dragged yesterday because they allowed a woman to post her pro-life feelings.
Right. Yeah.
An essay about it. And then everyone was saying, you shouldn't even read this, be done with this garbage, blah, blah, blah. And they got mobbed. And the guy said, hey, we're just a publication and we, post opposing points of view. And I'm like, the fact that you need to write a 10 Twitter thread to explain this is really sad.
That's what I think the real problem is. It actually isn't the woke people themselves, because they're a minority. They're just a very powerful minority, right? But if people stopped capitulating to them, then it would be fine. But the problem is that everyone does. So Kevin Hart suddenly isn't hosting the Oscars, or like, people or companies are backing up and saying, oh, we're sorry we said that, or sorry we did that. Don't apologize.
No.
Tell them to go fuck themselves.
No.
Like this, that's the problem.
Why do you think people are capitulating to this?
They're scared of the mob, right? They're scared because it actually has power. I mean,
it does. They'll ruin your life.
They will, and they are heartless, and that's what they want to do, right? And so, who's gonna bother with that? It's easier. It's an easier life if you just say, okay, we'll go with what you want, because then I don't get dogpiled on Twitter.
Yeah, and you're not writing angry Yelp reviews about my family business in Ohio, and you're not harassing my children at school.
It's so weird that these people think they're the good guys. That to me is incredible lack of self-awareness. I mean, that's not their strong point anyway, but geez, I mean, some of the most vicious stuff I've ever seen online, on social media, on Twitter, is either the horrible racist far right or the super left-wing, super woke people. And the worst thing about that is that we all know the alt-right are terrible, evil people. But these people, the lefty woke stuff, they think they're good. Yeah. So how do you combat that? Right? It's like,
I guess by doing what you're doing.
Well, that's the only thing I can do, because they won't debate.
No.
They won't listen to arguments. So the only thing I can do is make them look ridiculous.
So how did you start? Did you start with just the Twitter account, or how did it start?
Well, I've been doing stand-up for a long time, and I've written satire in the past and stuff. And then the idea of going on Twitter to do it.
How many years has she been around?
She's only been around 1 year.
Oh,
it's 1 year to the day. Actually, it's exactly 12 months ago.
Oh, wow.
So she
blew up.
Yeah. Well, there was a character on Twitter called Godfrey Elfwick who was on there for about. Do you remember him?
He writes for he and I are in the same satirical part of Spectator US.
That's right, Spectator US. So it's an interesting story, because Godfrey Elfwick was a genderqueer Muslim atheist and was the first sort of major parody SJW account, right? And that was run by a friend of mine called Lisa Graves, and she was running it with someone else who doesn't want to be named, so I won't name him. But they were like working together on that. And he got completely banned from Twitter. Right. Obviously, because he's taking the piss out of their ideology, right? So they took any excuse to get rid of him, got rid of him. Now, I mean, she brought him back like a few months ago, and he lasted 4 days before he was banned again. So,
oh my gosh.
So and we were talking, and I said I really admire what Lisa does, and I wanted to do a similar kind of thing. I wanted to attack the same targets, but with a different kind of character. So she said, "Well, why don't you just do it? Set up an account," and I did, and it was. I thought someone who was a really bad poet took themselves really seriously, and I thought that really sort of po-faced look, because that makes all the jokes funnier, I think, because she's looking at you like, I dare you to mock me or have a go at me or disagree, because she's so vicious, she's so nasty, and she will get the claws out, so I wanted to do that, and it was going along, and it was doing really well, and I was enjoying it. It was just for me to enjoy myself, really. And then she got a permanent ban, right?
That was couple months ago, right?
That was in November.
Right, I remember this.
And at that point, she'd got up to 40,000 followers. And lots of people came out, and there were quite prominent people saying, and a lot of prominent conservatives particularly came out saying, why Twitter is obviously partisan. And the thing, then Twitter reversed their decision. And I'd had the email saying, you are banned for good, right? 24 hours later, they reversed the decision. And I don't know, but I think what happened is they realized a lot of prominent right-wing people were using it as proof that Twitter has an agenda.
Bias, right.
So they didn't want to provide that ammunition. So they withdrew it, which is good for me, because then I got an extra 20,000 followers that day once I was back.
Right.
And then it grew from there. So actually, like the Streisand effect, right? Once you're banned, everyone wants to know what's going on.
Right.
And it was fun, because then I wrote an article about my suspension from Twitter called Now I Know What Nelson Mandela felt like.
Yeah, I saw that.
And then,
it was genius.
And then I was able to promote the book, which was already commissioned at the time anyway. So,
okay.
So, it sort of worked out well like that. But even the ban itself, it helps, because that sort of censorial aspect of the modern left is what I'm satirizing.
Right.
So by banning her, they are proving my point.
And it's satire.
You're
banning satire.
Yeah, exactly. It's
that was like when they banned. Did you see Beto's journal?
No, I didn't see that.
There was a satirical account making fun of Beto's road trip or something, and it was his just like road journal. It was hilarious. And they banned it. Yeah.
It's like,
I think it's back now, but it was because it wasn't explicitly satire. That was the reasoning.
If you say, "Oh, this is satire," then it's not funny anymore. So it shouldn't be explicit. It should tread that line, shouldn't it?
That's what satire is.
Exactly. I mean, there's one got banned, a guy called Barry Stanton, who was a satire of this sort of Middle England nasty racist character, right? And obviously because he's ill-educated, can't spell, has some really ugly, offensive opinions. But they banned him because I guess they took him literally, saying, "Oh, this is a racist account." But of course, he's attacking racists.
Right.
He's mocking racists, but they still banned him. Yeah. And there's another account, Jarvis Dupont. You should check that out.
I see him on. You retweet.
Yeah,
him.
really funny.
Yeah,
really
he's
great.
really funny.
So, it really upsets me, like when people don't understand the basics of satire and what it is, and seek to shut it down. But that said, satire has an agenda, and it wants to change things, and it can. I mean, historically, it has changed things, right? So maybe that's why they're banning it, because they sense that it can make people question, and it can give people permission to laugh at the stuff they're not meant to laugh at. Right,
but that's why every dictator bans jokes.
Yeah, Erdogan in Turkey, President Erdogan, he'll lock you up if you take the piss out of him.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, there was the guy in Germany who wrote a limerick saying that Erdogan had sex with goats.
Yeah.
Which may or may not be true. I don't know. And he asked Angela Merkel whether he could have him extradited to be arrested, and she considered it. They were considering this stuff. This is nonsense.
Yeah, it's crazy. So what inspired you where were you in your life that you said you needed to kind of take the piss out of this? Were you in academia, or were you...
I mean, I was in academia a long time ago, but I've been in stand-up for so long. The thing is, like, in my early years at stand-up, I was just I was pretty safe, I suppose. I think... it's not that I was being dishonest about my political views, but I didn't want to be completely open because I knew it wouldn't be that commercial, right? Mm-hmm. But then when you get to a certain age and a certain point, you've done it long enough, you just think, I'm just going to do what I want. Mm-hmm. And I'm always very mistrustful if there's things that are ring fenced, and that if you joke about this thing or mock this thing, then you're going to get in trouble. You're going to get the Twitter people. That makes me think, actually, that's all the more reason to do it. Mm-hmm. So I started doing it in my stand-up. And I still do, and really with Titania, it was kind of liberating, because all of a sudden I wasn't the face of it. And all of a sudden I could just joke about anything and I wouldn't get the people attacking me for it. And now, unfortunately,
I should have done what you did.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's really,
that was stupid of me.
But now I'm always slightly conscious when I tweet that a lot of people know it's me.
Right.
I still just do it.
Yeah. It's interesting that was where because I was doing stand-up and grinding much harder than I do now because I feel like everyone hates me.
Can't be true.
It was that feeling of I started noticing that I was self-censoring around my peers who were comedians.
Yeah.
And that they were policing each other's jokes. We'd be in these, like comedy writing sessions or whatever. And they started kind of policing their own jokes, where now it wasn't really a joke fest. It was more a woke fest, where they're getting up and preaching at the audience. And nobody wants that. I would go to show after show and people are just one of the things that always cracks me up is when these people like Chelsea Handler or Sarah Silverman, they do the let's go into the zoo of middle America and check out what it's like and talk to these people so that we can see why these people who are why they voted for Trump. You don't need to go.
Yeah.
Drive an hour outside of LA and you're in Valencia and it's like Christian and red. Yeah. Go to Orange County. It's not hard. Yeah. They don't even want to confront the fact that it's in their backyard or, God forbid, in LA.
No, they
don't need to go
They only
far.
associate with people who think the same way as them. And
so that was when I started kind of pushing back, and Twitter was the safe place for me to do so because I could. And then same thing though. It just kind of took on a life of its own. And recently when I was on Glenn Beck's show, when I was doing his podcast, I just sat there and I said, why am I here? This is evidence of the simulation being real, is me sitting here. I never in a million years would have thought that the culture would have shifted so far to the left that I'm having a conversation with Glenn Beck about my addiction.
I feel like we've got that similar experiences in that way. It's like, because a lot of people on the comedy circuit in the UK now see me as this right-wing reactionary figure. My views are pretty much they haven't changed. They've refined or whatever, but they haven't changed massively.
Yeah.
But the whole culture has shifted and the whole landscape has shifted. And now apparently what I'm saying is controversial. Whereas if I'd have said it 15 years ago, everyone would have probably just agreed. Right. So other people shifting around me, I guess. And the same from what you described. I think the thing you mentioned there about comics policing each other, that's really interesting, right? Because if comedians are the ones doing that, there's no hope, right? No. There's no hope at all, because the audiences don't want it. It's they want the old style, mock everything, have a go at it. Like, this is just a sort of woke elite.
We're their pressure valve that gets released.
Yeah.
The laughter you hear in an audience is the acknowledgement that you're saying something that they can't.
Right, exactly.
They get to vicariously express their frustration, their sadness, their self-deprecation, their feelings of isolation, their feelings of loneliness, their feelings of frustration, their feelings of just observing the absurdity through laughing at something that we say. Yeah. And when you are just up there preaching the approved message and joking about it.
Well, that's just a sermon.
Yeah. That's go do a TED Talk.
Yeah, I'm so not interested in that.
No. And they all sound the same now. Every single one of them.
That's the problem with it. That's the problem, is that everyone sounds the same. And because I set up this comedy night in London, the whole point was, it's called Comedy Unleashed. And the whole point was to encourage free thinking, encourage no self-censorship, and just saying, this isn't a safe space. Comedy shouldn't be a safe space, right? It should be that anything can happen kind of atmosphere. Which is great, because loads of comics do self-censor and they deny it, but they do. And I love it when they get drunk sometimes, friends of mine, and they'll admit to me, I wish I could joke about the things you do. It's like, just do it. You can. And I'm not the sort of person who's saying, you can't say anything anymore, because I think you can. We can stand up there and we can say stuff.
Right.
The trouble is,
we're self-censoring.
We will self-censor because we want to get booked again, and we want to get on TV, or you know what I mean? So that's the payoff, isn't it?
This is the conversation that I'm most interested in, is the idea of self-censorship. And again, it comes up pretty much everywhere I go. I talk to Ruben about it. I talk to Beck about it. I put out a pitch for people to email me about ways in which they self-censor. Yeah. And now it's normal self-censorship. Okay, whatever. We all do that just to get
polite,
by,
just
and
to be polite, right?
and
Yeah.
civil to
That's
one
a good
another.
thing.
Yeah, it's not all bad. And I hate that people think that I think all self-censorship is bad. But what I noticed was that I was saying it's the self-censorship where you're people-pleasing.
Right.
And then beyond people-pleasing, because again, there's a certain amount of that that's just normal, but where I have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
I was in a position that I could do this.
Yeah.
But if I had a job at a corporation, if I had kids in a school, if I was more of a public figure, I know people who are very famous who tend to agree with me and secretly confess that all the time.
Yeah.
And they cannot say anything publicly.
I totally agree. I mean, I feel as though I'm privileged actually to do what I do because I can say what I want, right? But when I was a teacher, I was a school teacher for a while, and there were obviously, there are standards you have to uphold anyway. But now, if I was a teacher now, I wouldn't even joke with colleagues in the staff room in a certain way.
No.
Because someone might overhear, misconstrue, and then you're in trouble, then you lose your job, etc. So this stuff is...
It's Orwellian.
And that's become a cliche, and people always say, oh, you always go on about Orwell. What else are you supposed to call it?
Right.
Read the book. Read 1984. This is what's happening.
Right.
And so you've just got to use the correct terms. I really worry about that self-censorship thing because I think it's all very well saying, well, the state doesn't censor us. It doesn't.
Not yet.
But not yet, right?
But that's what I mean. The idea that this slippery slope isn't real, and this is again something I talk about all the time. And I've been tweeting about this for years. I'm like, it starts in the mind. We create the conditions for it. That's why they say all politics occur downstream of culture. Yeah. Because you have to create the condition for everyone believing like gay marriage is cool before the policies are enacted that make gay marriage legal.
Right, exactly.
The culture has to be accepting of that. And when you see the statistics of the younger generation and their feelings about free speech, it's terrifying.
So like a good example, a good comparison there is like, say with the trans debate at the moment, okay, which people are trying to force through versions of speech on people. They're trying to they're trying to threaten people to speak in a certain way and to have certain ideas. But if you compare it to the gay rights movement, right? Nobody ever locked people up for using the wrong words about gay people. Nobody ever castigated and publicly shamed people who didn't approve of gay marriage. We won the culture war by winning people over, and then everything fell into place. Right. We're doing it backward here now.
Right.
And you're just going to generate a lot of resentment and anger, and it's not going to work. People aren't going to be persuaded. Someone doesn't become tolerant simply because they're not allowed to use unpleasant words anymore.
Right.
And it really, you have to win the culture war. You have to win the hearts and minds first. That's the problem.
The problem is it might appear that they're winning the culture war, but and this is why I keep saying that I'm like, Trump's going to win a landslide. And
of course he is. Yeah.
And everyone's like, no, look at the polls. Look at this. Like but I'm like, you're bullying people into publicly saying one thing, and privately I have 500
Absolutely.
emails from people about self-censorship, and they thought it was all these like oppressed Trump voters. It's not. It's people on the left.
Yeah.
People on the left who feel like they cannot say something in their mommy group, or they got banned from a Facebook page because they used the wrong word. And most people are not on Twitter, and they're not up to date on this stuff. And so they'll stumble into it because there's one woke person in a group setting. And they'll end up stumbling into trouble without even knowing why they got into trouble.
Right. And if Trump was the perfect example, people were so shocked by the polls.
Everyone
The polls were
lied.
so wrong, right?
Yeah.
Of course they lied. Because, you had Hillary Clinton calling half the population deplorables. That worked out for you. That was because, of course, resentment is so powerful.
Oh, so powerful.
It's like, and the vote is the only power a lot of people have.
Yep.
And they'll use it against you, and good. The people deserve to be shaken up. The system deserves it.
What's so outrageous to me is that there does not seem to be, I talk about this a lot too, with the idea of self-censorship and then the cognitive dissonance that kind of occurred when he won.
Yeah.
And when that occurs, you kind of have one of two choices, which is to double down.
Yeah.
Or to evaluate your role and see how reality could be so different from what your expectation of reality was supposed to be.
But how much easier is it for
double down?
For someone to just say, okay, what I'll do is I'll just accept the narrative that Trump won because America's really racist. Right. So I accept that narrative, and then I don't have to think anymore, and I don't have to self-reflect. And you're right. They absolutely just doubled down on all of the problems, basically guaranteeing him a second term, basically. And it's made the underbelly more powerful. Yeah.
which is something that, I mean, if I've stumbled into this too, where one of the things that when I saw this happening, the like watch whiteness work and turning this, conflating white racism with and calling it whiteness.
Yep.
I was like, this is a bad idea,
really
guys.
Bad. Really bad.
Really bad idea. You don't want an entire population of white men to be like, no, I'm proud of my whiteness.
Yeah.
If you I need to defend it.
If you play identity politics,
freaking...
that's it. Like the left playing identity politics has opened the doors for the right to do the same. They absolutely push it now. They do play it on the right too. This is something like, I'm against identity politics in all its manifestations.
Yeah.
On the far right, it comes in the form of this xenophobic, racist nonsense about white supremacy, right? And on the far left, it comes in the form of this identity politics that we're talking about, right? This kind of intersectional nonsense. And the problem with that is each side, they're two extremes, and they're not they're minority people, they're small groups, but they have a lot of power and they feed off each other, right? So there's nothing more likely to help the far right to grow, and it is on the rise, unfortunately, than the way the far left are behaving. Right? It just gives them permission to behave like this.
And the far right is terrifying, and this is,
of course,
I feel, when people come at me and they're like, you're always taking pot shots at the left and the real danger is on the right. But I feel that is the right's responsibility.
Yeah.
People who came into the middle, the never Trumpers, people who are even in the right. That is their responsibility to take the biggest problem. One of the big problems, and I was talking to Glenn Beck about this, is because this binary has been created, it's like, oh, either you're racist or you're not. No, right. You have to address the racism in that party. It's there. I've seen it. Yep. It was, you and I were talking about this before we started recording. You start getting shared by the right wing.
Yeah, awful people, right. Exactly.
And then all of a sudden the underbelly of your mentions are like, well, I hope you die, whore. And for me, it's a lot of misogyny and just tons of racism out of the blue. And that exists there.
And this comes from the left surrendering the free speech debate.
Right.
But basically the left has been not only failed to defend it, but has been really sort of actively hostile to it. And what that means is these ghastly people on the far right are able to claim it as their own. And then what happens is no one wants to defend free speech because they'll be associated with those people.
Exactly.
And that's what makes it all the more important that people on the left...
But that's what's happening to us.
Yeah,
people,
exactly.
I mean, I was talking about this the other day with James Lindsay, the guy who does the grievance studies. And I find that essentially if you're in the space that we're in, where we're kind of saying, guys, the idea of hate speech and the assault on free speech is not helpful, essentially. But then what happens is I'm now carrying water for Nazis.
Yeah, because you're letting them speak, right?
Yeah.
So you're their friend.
I'm carrying water for Nazis, and I am essentially, the line has been drawn where they won't associate with me. So I get criticized for only going on right-wing media. Well, they're the only people inviting me on, or center-left. No one from the left wants to have a discussion with me. I'm not being invited onto. So I'll call you out on your idea that I'm only talking to the right wing and that you're not asking me to talk.
And this is the problem. No one's talking to each other. This is the fundamental problem with absolutely everything. And people think if they just surround themselves by like-minded people, they can create this illusory bubble where the world is perfect. We've got this utopia, but you're never going to persuade someone by punching them, insulting them, or writing them off. When did that ever work?
No.
Like
that's what I don't. It's the cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
It was like the line in the sand, and then we have these moments like the recent shooting, for example, and I start to be like, is this like I feel so torn, and it's like I'm being backed into two corners at once, where I am passionate about, I understand the urge to be like, shut these Nazis up.
Totally. I get
shut them down. Like, how do we stop these people? But I don't think that just shutting down all communication and deplatforming everybody and creating a group of people who are untouchable and demonetized is necessarily the way to do it. And I certainly don't think that just eradicating free speech is a way to do it.
Right. Well, this is it. Like, I've I'm often accused of being a useful idiot for the far right because I am defending free speech and I'm defending.
But do you ever wonder if you are?
Yeah, all the time. So I doubt myself all the time and I question myself. And I can honestly say, hand on heart, I've thought a lot about this. And I also know a thing or two about history. So I know that actually whenever you have shut down free speech or a government has shut down free speech, it results in the exact opposite, the worst kind of people rise to the surface. Okay, it's really, really bad thing. And what we don't want to do is to surrender our culture to the far right, but we will do so by the way that we're going, right? If we just completely shut down free speech, they're no fans of free speech. The far right are no fans of free speech at all.
No.
We are playing into their hands. So the only way, as far as I can see, the only way to actually defeat the far right is to win the culture war. And that means upholding anyone's right to say whatever they want, to discuss ideas, to have a freedom for everyone. That's the only way to do it. Now, I could be wrong, but I think I'm right.
This is the struggle. And it was an interesting, again, talking to Glenn was just so interesting. And it got me thinking so much just because he, what's really interesting is both sides think they're on the right side of history.
Do. Yeah, exactly.
And I understand why they think that.
Yeah.
And because they both believe the other side is on the wrong side, it has shut down communication.
Yeah.
And Glenn made an actually really good point, which he said, I pushed back and said, the other side would say, arguably, you're on the wrong side because you're on the side of the people that they would consider, you're in the direction of what they would consider the alt-right or
in the direction of, there's quite a distinction though between being right wing and
totally.
It's such an important distinction.
It's such an important distinction, but it's all I'm alt-right.
Right,
I get called alt-right all the time.
Now this is madness to me. And this is one of the reasons why the alt-right will continue to grow. If you erode that distinction between right wing and alt-right or far right, what it does is it allows people on the alt-right to claim a greater support than they actually have.
Right.
It's a real boon to them. It helps them.
Right.
And the thing is, it's sloppy journalism for one thing. Like if I had a conversation with Tim Poole about this, and he said, if you check the Associated Press website, there's an actual journalistic definition of alt-right. Mm-hmm. It has to imply white nationalism. Okay. Mm-hmm. So if you are using it in any other way as a journalist, you're just being unethical. Mm-hmm. And yet I get branded this way. You've been branded this way. So it's false. It's wrong. It's unethical, and it's helping the very people that they claim not to support.
Right.
We have to do away with this concept. I don't think there's anything wrong with being right wing. I don't think there's anything wrong with being conservative. And I'm not prepared to bundle all these very good people, a lot of them are very good people, into this.
Very good people.
Well, you know what I mean? Like,
no,
there are some really good conservatives.
Yeah, no, I mean,
there are some twats as well, right? But you can't.
But you can't also just caricature everybody.
No.
So very good people. It's like we're all human. We get to be complex.
Right.
People like Glenn Beck are amazing and brilliant and have done a lot in some ways. And in some ways, he's just he loves saying insane things because it's like he's used to getting a reaction.
And we're all a bit fucked up, right? So we've all got different, but we shouldn't write anyone off. We shouldn't write any. I mean, that's another problem with the woke movement is they don't believe in redemption. They believe you're sort of tainted with this original sin and you're evil and
so what he was saying, Glenn, he said, well, I know I'm on the right side of history because the other side is saying that I can't talk.
Yeah, exactly.
And he said, anytime you see anyone saying that's wrong. And that was interesting. I often feel, I think anyone in our space, I called James Lindsay, crying when I've been in so many positions where it's always on the heels of doing these kinds of interviews with people that are untouchables, as I would call them.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I talked to Gavin, I went on Gavin McGinnis's show.
Yeah, yeah.
And then,
so now you're fascist adjacent.
Oh, yeah. That night he went to New York, and it was when he was, there were all those videos coming out of the Proud Boys beating people in the streets of New York. And I was like, oh, God.
But you didn't beat anyone on the streets of New York, right? So
but I'm now forever. I mean,
well, I'm not interested in that stuff anymore. This guilt by association stuff, they can fuck off. I'm not going to play that game anymore. I think we need to talk to people, even the people we really, really disagree with.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting, there are some awful people you'll never be able to persuade them, right? But just the idea that you can, if you're on a platform with someone, you've somehow they've contaminated you with their ideology is so basically wrong on just a fundamental level, basically.
Or the
wrong.
idea that I'm supposed to go on there and take these people to task.
Right, exactly.
Which is what Joe Rogan often gets accused of not doing enough of. And it's like, you can't, how is that helpful.
Well, actually, these people are self-discrediting. I say let them speak, right? The very
Right.
worst elements of the far right, when they open their mouth. In our country, in the UK, there was a horrible party called the BNP, the British National Party, a racist party. And when the BBC allowed their leader, Nick Griffin, to go on our main sort of political discussion programme called Question Time, he was utterly discredited by his own words.
Right.
He was so idiotic, so incoherent, and he just got destroyed. And then the BNP collapsed. Right, it's a good thing when you let these people speak, right? We had a similar thing. There was an awful guy called Enoch Powell who made a really racist speech back in the 70s. Now, he had every possibility of becoming prime minister, but that speech killed his career.
Right.
Stone dead because he spoke, because he was allowed to open his mouth.
Right.
And this is why I think I understand your what you're saying about your reticence about God. Am I helping these people, right? But I think you should reassure yourself that, in fact, the way to prove it to yourself is to think about this. Like, we know we're right from the past 10 years. We know we're right from their tactics don't work, right? Trump is doing better than ever. Like, he's polling better than ever amongst Republican supporters, right? Than any previous Republican president. And if it were the case that pushing the woke ideology, trying to control people's speech and thought was eliminating these problems, then this wouldn't be the case.
Right.
So
I think it's
their
just,
way doesn't work.
Yeah, I think
basically.
it's just the natural, I think it's natural for any of us who are in this place to be, there's no path back.
Yeah.
There's no way. The only way, I was just kind of sitting in this hotel room in Dallas, like very alone. And the problem is when you're in this tribalist place that we're in, it's like, what, 5 of us? I mean, there's more than that, but it's a lonely place because there's no, not that I would want to go back. I left. So I always say, people are like, I'm a politically homeless. And I was like, I'm more of like a refugee.
Right.
I feel like it got taken over and I had to like escape from these horrible gangs that took over my village. And now I'm just on the move, and it's such a weird, I don't know. It's such a good time for me to have this conversation because I'm coming on the heels of something that's like, but it's so weird.
And there's nothing wrong with being politically homeless in a way, like being undecided about certain issues. Because actually,
I think it's good.
It's great. Like the real problem is what you say there, the tribalism. As soon as people start subscribing to a particular ideology wholesale, it means they no longer have to think for themselves. So any kind, that's why I would never align myself explicitly with a political party or with a particular way of thinking. Like, I wouldn't say I'm this, I'm a Marxist, I'm a capitalist, whatever. I think once you do that, you've basically said, I don't need to think for myself. It's like a religion, right? And that to me is the problem with the woke ideology. The best way to think of it is like a religion. They have their own tenets. They have their own heresies.
I call it the tenets of woke.
It is. And it is that. And it does represent a serious lack of critical thinking. It represents but
it's all wrapped in critical theory. That's the freaking terrifying thing about it.
Right. It's based on this very outdated post-structuralist stuff that used to be fashionable back in the 90s in universities, and it's kind of trickled down somehow. And that's why everyone talks about power structures.
Right.
And everyone talks about these nebulous kind of structures that you need to. But it's not helpful. Right. And it's not true that power explains everything. It explains a lot. It doesn't explain everything.
Right.
And again, what this is as with all ideologies, it's oversimplifying a massively complex idea, because then you don't have to think about it anymore.
Right.
If you say, well, we live in a white supremacist patriarchy and that explains that, then that's a simple solution to a very, very complex problem.
Right.
And that's why I mistrust it. The intersectional idea, okay? I mean, that started out as an analogy. It was a legal scholar called Kimberly Crenshaw who in 1989 made these. Well,
I have it right here,
you probably know all this, but it's like, the analogy is helpful.
But explain it for the listeners.
So intersectionality. So what she was saying is she was actually writing an article about a discrimination case in the 70s against General Motors, where effectively they were accused of discriminating against black female employees, and their defense was, but we've got loads of black males and we've got loads of white women, so that means we're not racist or sexist. And of course, black women were falling through the cracks there, right? So Crenshaw came up with this idea of intersectionality. If you imagine you're at the intersection of a crossroads and you're being impacted by multiple forms of oppression, so you've got sexism on one road, racism on the other, that's how it works.
Right.
Now, as an analogy, that helps. Like, I can see it, I can understand the point, and she was right to raise this point.
It is a true point.
It's true.
Yeah.
But now intersectionality has become like a religion, like a faith, and they are basing this whole faith on what was a useful analogy, which no longer has utility, because those problems by and large are sorted. You're not going to get those kind of egregious discrimination cases of that magnitude. She was right to do it then, but to apply it now seems to me incongruous, because we live in a society where I'm not for a second suggesting that racism, homophobia, all the rest doesn't still exist. Of course it does.
Right.
But it is not systemic on the level that it was. And the more progressive we become and the more empowered marginalized groups become, it seems to be the more people are determined to show their victim status. And they do it through intersectionality, which has effectively become a kind of hierarchy of grievances.
Right.
And it pits people against each other. I mean, look at this January in California, you had the Women's March cancelled because people were afraid that at the Women's March, too many white women would turn up.
Right.
What the hell is that?
Yeah.
I mean, so now white women are evil?
Oh, white women are evil.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is the inevitable endpoint of intersectionality. When you turn an analogy into a religion and people follow it without thinking, it becomes a divisive, segregatory approach to existence. It can't work.
Yeah, that's what James always says, that it really, that it's probably going to implode. You know, it will fall in on itself. Even just watching the primary, it's like, oh. Well, I mean, they are going to destroy each other.
Right. I mean, look at the, I mentioned it in my book actually about the pussy hats, you know, like, so Catherine Nolan designed the knitting pattern for the pink pussy hats. And then she was accused of being transphobic because lots of men identify as women and they don't have vaginas. So she withdrew the knitting pattern and created one with a yellow flower instead. And I make a joke about like, oh, well, that could be triggering to someone who's been sexually assaulted by a florist. You know? So it's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that is another example of someone has a really good intention and they're an intersectionalist and they try and do something positive for a marginalized group and they get, no, that's not good enough.
I found a whole thing that could have been written by you, and it was on
There's a lot of it.
It was on the on whether it was a whole entire conversation about whether or not douchebag is considered ableist.
Are you kidding me?
No.
I love that. I'm going to use that.
I'll show it to you. It is the most amazing. I think I have a screenshot of it. I don't know. It is
this stuff, right?
Freaking hilarious.
But you know, it becomes. Can I give you an example? Like, so
how can that be not made fun of?
It's essentially ludicrous. I did a this true story. I did a tweet last August, as Titania, and the tweet was about the film Mary Poppins,
right?
And it was the scene.
This all became real,
right?
Didn't it?
So there was a scene in Mary Poppins where she's got chimney. She's with the chimney sweeps and she gets soot on her face, right? And I made a joke saying, "Look at Julie Andrews blacking up. This is outrageous, right?" I tweeted that with a picture of her. I promise you, New York Times, February of this year, posted an article saying this is blackface.
Yeah.
So I predicted it by 5 months. So it's not like I'm a kind of Cassandra figure.
No.
It's not like I'm a prophet. I'd like to think I was, right? That'd be amazing. But when it becomes real, and it's happened a couple of times, I've tweeted something to Titania.
There was something
and it's
else.
like, what the hell? This is it's now. It's happened.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what it was. I did a stupid tweet about Meghan Markle and Prince Harry raising their baby as gender fluid.
Uh-huh. And they are.
And now they are. Or they've suggested they might.
There's nothing more annoying than, and I was saying that I definitely want to write something about this. The monarchy meeting woke is like
amazing, isn't it?
The most annoying thing I've ever seen.
Hilarious with Prince Harry getting his £10,000 helicopter ride and then complaining about the environment and his carbon footprint. Like I mean, Beyonce
and Jay-Z recently had a whole thing where they were going to give free tickets to people who went vegan so that they could reduce their carbon footprint.
Hilarious.
And I was like, okay, guys.
You know what? We don't need to be hectored at by multimillionaires. You know?
Billionaires.
I know. What are you talking about? Like
their footprint, Leonardo DiCaprio's carbon footprint in 1 year is more than mine will be in a lifetime.
Right. Exactly. You know what? I love the idea of Prince Harry, though, particularly. Prince Harry lecturing you about how to be a good person. This is the man who once dressed as a Nazi at a fancy dress party, which, by the way, I don't have a problem with insofar as he wasn't actually endorsing Nazism. He was at a fancy dress party, right?
Yeah.
But still, like it's kind of just hilariously, it's that lack of self-awareness.
Yeah.
This incredibly uber privileged group of people. They've got everything. They don't know what it's like to be poor.
They're doing vegan paint.
Yeah, I know.
In the nursery, and it's like infused with eucalyptus and.
Do you know how expensive that shit is? Like, if you want to be like these people who don't want for anything, telling everyone they should go vegan.
Oh, it's.
Give me a break.
I can't handle it. I can't. It is exactly the definition of the word I made up when I started my company, and it's Phetasy, and it was when reality becomes parody.
You know, it makes me. I'm a vegetarian, right? But this stuff makes me want to eat meat, and I hate meat, but I'd power through for this. I'm fed up with this. You know, it's just like that's the other problem with this stuff. It makes me want to say the stuff that annoys them. I wrote the book to annoy people, not to entertain them. Like, I just want to annoy these people,
right?
You know,
and that's the thing too, is that. You know, we're often called reactionaries.
Yeah. Well, by reactionaries. It's reactionaries who are calling us reactionaries.
Right. But shouldn't we be? How can you not react to this stuff?
Oh, yeah, I suppose. But I suppose in the standard version of reactionary, I think it's them. They're the ones who have this alarmist, knee-jerk response to everything. They're so easy. So Ricky Gervais did a tweet recently about, he was saying, he got it spot on. He said, people keep complaining about you can't say anything more. It's a great time actually to be a comedian because people are so easily wound up.
Yeah,
and it's true. And I think I think if satire is doing its job right, then a lot of people will be annoyed. That's how you know it's working.
Yeah, I always say this online. I'm like, I really am amazing at being annoying.
Yeah,
and I take the piss out of the right too because they're easy to take the piss out of.
Well, and anyone in power. I mean, this is a really interesting thing. Is I'm often criticized. They say, "Why don't you ever go at the right more often?" Well, firstly, I do, and I have a lot. I spend a lot of time slagging off the right, but also people in power. Right, you've got the Trump over here. You've got Theresa May in our country. These are ostensibly right wing politicians, right? But in terms of the culture and the culture war, it's not them that are winning out.
No.
So that's why when we have taken the piss out of woke culture, we're punching up.
Right. Oh yeah, that's what's so. But because they're like marginalized and oppressed,
right?
It's always people are always telling me I'm punching down. But
but that's not. It's so right. So if you say that if I'm mocking these sort of woke social justice people, right, and you say, oh, you're having a go at minorities. You have such a basic lack of understanding of what I'm doing. I can't help you. I actually can't help you. I can't even there's been a number of people who've written about this about me, and they're saying, he's attacking gay people. It's like, what are you? If you think that, I actually can't explain it to you. It's rudimentary. That's like a kindergarten interpretation of what I'm doing.
Yeah,
I'm not even going to bother. There's no hope for you.
I'd like to take a quick break so we can talk about our sponsor. We all want to do the right thing to keep our bodies healthy in the long run, but even if we try really hard and eat kale salads and drink green smoothies, we're still most likely not getting all of the essential nutrients we need on a daily basis. Enter Ritual, the obsessively researched vitamin for women. Ritual's essentials have the nutrients most of us don't get enough of from food, all in their clean, absorbable forms, no shady additives or ingredients that can do more harm to your body than good. 2 easy-to-take capsules provide 9 nutrients you need to support a strong foundation for your health. I've been taking Ritual for about 3 months now, and I definitely feel a difference in my energy. It feels more consistent. I also it's hard, I think, to notice at first. I'm pretty healthy overall. And at first to notice the change, but I think the biggest observable difference is people keep commenting on my skin and hair looking great and shiny. My hair, they're like, your hair is so shiny. And I really think it's the vitamins. I feel much more energetic. I feel like I wake up and I'm not so groggy in the mornings. I think it's just the purity of the contents of this vitamin. I love knowing that I'm getting everything my body needs or might be lacking from these vitamins. For obsessive label readers, all of Ritual's vegan-friendly, sugar-free, non-GMO, gluten-free, and allergen-free ingredients and their sources are out there for the whole world to see. A subscription is easy to start and it's easy to snooze. It's only $1 a day to have all the essential nutrients your body needs, delivered every month, no strings attached. Better health doesn't happen overnight, and right now, Ritual is offering my listeners 10% off during your first 3 months. Fill in the gaps in your diet with Essential for Women, a small step that helps support a healthy foundation for your body. Visit ritual.com/walkin to start your Ritual today. That's 10% off during your first 3 months at ritual.com/walk-in. I found the douchebag thing.
Okay.
This could have been written by you. So this is autistic Hoya, and it's all the words you can't use. I mean, it's a very long list.
What's the context? Why are they creating this list?
Who's
it for?
It is. Hold on.
Can you send this to me? I'd love to.
Oh yeah.
Read the whole thing.
I mean, it could have been. There's a quote about how if you see something, you're accountable, and once you see it, violence in language.
Right.
Because language is violent.
Yeah. I mean, it's not.
Ableism is not a list of bad words. Language is one tool of an oppressive system.
Okay.
Being aware of language, for those of us who have the privilege of being able to change our language, can help us understand how pervasive ableism is. Ableism is systematic, institutional devaluing of bodies and minds deemed deviant, abnormal, defective, subhuman, less than. Ableism is violence. Did you see the thing the other day about the woman who did the speech at St. Olaf, and she was saying that fat phobia is essentially sexual violence?
I saw that she said children can consent to dieting.
Yeah.
They can apparently consent to have chemical injections and change their gender. But anyway, there we go.
It was insane.
Yeah, mad. I mean, this language is violence thing is the most damaging thing that people have bought into. It's utter...
Speech is violence.
Do you know what? Do you know where it comes from? It comes from post-structuralism. It comes from Derrida and Foucault. And these people don't fully understand the ideology they're promoting.
I don't understand it.
Well, they believe
what is this ideology?
So, it's hugely complicated. Let me try and break it down in a very short way. It is this idea that there is no truth beyond language. There is no inherent truth beyond the language with which it is conveyed, right? Mm-hmm. So, and that power and power structures in society are built into the way we speak to each other and the words that we use.
Right.
So therefore, if you subscribe to that, now you'll say, well, language oppresses. You can oppress someone with language, and therefore we need to police language to resolve the oppression.
Okay.
But of course, this is utter nonsense. And the problem is it's based on post-structuralism, which is a nonsense. It's not true. It's not real.
What is that exactly?
So that's what I've just described, which is the basically it's a bunch of trendy French philosophers from the 90s and 80s.
I think James Lindsay talks about this too, actually.
But that's where we're at now. And if you think, I really hate this idea, but you know who else did this? Is Orwell. Newspeak in 1984 is about policing people's language. So you can't say things are bad anymore. You say ungood.
Right.
You know, double plus good.
They're doing this with kids, though. You can't tell a kid no. You have to tell don't run. You have to say you move your legs more slowly. You know, move your legs slower.
This is a big problem. There's a real problem with resilience with kids. When I was a teacher, I was told not to mark in red because it was too alarmist and it might upset them. It made me want to mark their essays in blood. I should have done that.
You should have.
One girl cried once because I criticized her. It's like, that's what feedback is sometimes,
I know.
right?
And you're seeing, so this is the other thing that's happened that I'm noticing amongst friends. They've kind of taken the Me Too and weaponized it.
Yeah.
But now it's just been being used. If anyone gets criticized, they basically say they don't feel safe. And then human resources is getting involved.
So I've had arguments with people on Twitter where they say, why are you harassing me and bullying me? I'm like, I thought we were having an argument. We're having an adult discussion, aren't we? No. But apparently, no. If I contradict you, if I criticize you, that's a form of violence.
Oh, God. Okay. So
Unbelievable.
This is I know a lot of people who align with feminist, womanist, and other anti-oppression politics.
Womanist?
Womanist.
I've never heard womanist.
We're going to have to look it up. And other anti-oppression politics have conflicting feelings about the term douchebag and its variations like douche canoe, douche hat, etc.
Oh my God.
Some think it's fine because vaginas can naturally clean themselves without douching. Others think it's misogynistic in general because a douche is something women, trans and cis use. Others think it's trans misogynistic specifically because trans women with constructed vaginas may need to use a douche because theirs may not clean naturally.
You can never win. You can never win, right? So
similarly, I've met a few people who argue that using fuckface is at least inadvertently contributing to rape culture since the insult assumes sexual violence. Plenty of others actively engaged in anti-sexual violence work disagree.
Are you sure this isn't a satire?
No, this is real.
This is insane.
This is real. This is a real...
Please send this to me.
I'm
going to do a version of this. This is just hilarious.
It's like you can't use Ableist terms and phrases that are mostly outdated and not in use every day anymore. Cretin, feeble-minded, invalid, mental defective, mongoloid.
Right. So do you know what? I'm all for politeness and decorum.
Of course.
But this stuff makes me want to use these words.
Oh, of course.
Like,
it's like the war on drugs. Who thought that daring teenagers not to do drugs was a good idea?
Yeah, people didn't give up alcohol during Prohibition, you know? But this reminds me of the Healthline thing, which is San Francisco, you know, the health group who started saying we shouldn't use the word vagina, we should say front hole.
Oh, God.
Right? Which sounds like, actually, front hole sounds like something a misogynist would say.
It does.
You know? Same with menstruators. Can we start calling women menstruators? Well, not all women menstruate, but, you know, you're in a real mess there.
This is, you're not allowed to say bonkers, which I use all the time.
Well, this is it. You are allowed...
Can you refer to people with a mental or psychiatric disability if the implication from use is that a person is like a crazy person? Consider instead wild, confusing, unpredictable, impulsive, reckless, fearless, lives on the edge, thrill seeker, risk taker, or out of control.
Right.
Blind to, turn a blind eye to, blinded by ignorance, double blind rear view, refers to blind, low vision, or sight limited people. Often used as a metaphor. We can't use metaphors anymore. Consider instead willfully ignorant, deliberately ignoring, turning their back on. But isn't that ableist to people who don't have backs?
It really is. It really is. Do you know what I would say, though, on an optimistic note, right? All of this stuff and the people who write this sort of stuff, right? At the end of the day, you have a First Amendment. People can say whatever they want. And I would just urge people to say whatever they want, right? If enough people do it, if enough people just don't kowtow to this kind of authoritarian bullshit, then actually it will be the problem is people are just scared of they don't want the hassle, do they?
No, why would you?
Yeah.
I mean, the list goes on, and almost even funnier are the consider instead.
Consider instead.
You can't say idiotic, refers to people. Consider instead uninformed, reckless, impulsive, ignorant, risk-taking, risky, and dangerous dipshit. What?
Is that okay?
Wait.
Really?
Why is dipshit on there?
I find that more offensive than idiotic.
I mean, this is satire. No, you know how I know this isn't satire? Because my friend had to read it in his... he shared it with me because it was one of his diversity classes that he had to take for his psychology degree. Right. Okay. And so he was like, Bridget, you've got to see this site that we had to write a paper about. And it's...
You see, I worry about this because it's so prominent in universities now. You get it's infected all disciplines, right?
Right.
I even saw a tweet the other day from a musicologist who was basically saying that if you prefer Beethoven to trap, you are buying into white elitist supremacist culture, right? It's look... And that's a musicologist. Why is he talking in this woke jargon? Why is
that? What if you just like Beethoven? You can't just like it, or that's my internalized white supremacist.
Exactly. And actually, Beethoven was probably half black because his mother was a Moor. But this guy, doesn't do his history. They don't read books. They don't actually know anything. They just say this stuff. They just put it out there.
Because they all are like happily. It was like in that video of the St. Olaf woman where she was like, you can't call yourself a communist, a socialist, an anarchist. I'm like, who wants to call themselves these things? Who's happily like, I'm a communist?
I think a lot of the problem is, firstly, right, it's about education, actually. I think we don't have critical thinking. Kids aren't taught to think critically, to think for themselves, okay? And that's something we need to really sort out. And the other thing is just people don't know anything about history. They don't read anymore. They can't see. They're perpetuating the same patterns.
But
right?
the younger generation, the YouTube generation, I mean, speaking of hilarious conversations about language, I did a round table with my friend's 3 teenage boys, 18, 14, and 12. And hopefully it will be approved for my podcast because I have to get parents have to listen to it. And
fair enough.
And at the end of it, we were talking about the election, and then I was laughing because I asked them what they thought about it, and the 18-year-old said, I don't know, but everybody was pretty butthurt about it. And then we got into this discussion about what butthurt meant, which led to my little young 10-year-old Googling it and reading the Urban Dictionary definition of butter in his little child's voice, which was so funny. And because my friend was like, isn't that kind of homophobic? I'm like, I don't think that's how it's meant. I think it just means overly sensitive, which is the way that it's meant. But this is the thing. People are so paranoid that now they're assigning.
Yeah. But there's nothing I could say that someone couldn't interpret in an offensive way.
It is just, it's bonkers.
It's a minefield. But actually, even the metaphor minefield could cause problems for anyone who's a veteran or something like that. So my view on this is, all this stuff is just, if enough people just stop worrying about it. I'm all for, like I say, I'm all for people being polite, right? We have a social contract for a reason,
Yeah.
But like, particularly with comedy, like I think, don't go to a comedian and expect for them to be polite.
But there's a lot of this younger generation, they are, particularly, I don't think what the kind of millennials understood was, they were talking about the election and they said everyone's butthurt, and then they were talking about how they were learning about democracy, etc. But then they were like, I don't understand why all of our teachers came in and cried for a week after the election. And so these kids were kind of, I'm like, you guys created like an entire generation of Republicans because you came in talking about democracy, and they're like, I thought there was going to be another election. What's the big deal?
This is why, This is why I get really worried about people writing off millennials, right? Because firstly, if there is a problem with resilience amongst the young, which I think there is, that's our fault. That's our generation. We created that. Okay. Yeah. The second thing about that is, so many young people who I've spoken to are sick of this shit. So many, right? It's just that the minority of young people who go into student politics, say, or get on Twitter and they bully people, right? They are a small fraction. I think we should, honestly, optimism is the way. I think most young people are just as sick and you.
That generation is so over it.
They're over it. Totally over it.
That's what I don't think they realize. Like the young generation, I talked to these like 18-year-olds in Santa Monica, and this is like ground zero for woke. And they went to school and they were raised with all of this intersectional, this kind of education, diversity training, blah, blah, blah. And they are all huge Ben Shapiro fans because of it.
Right. So that's it. Like the millennials, they don't realize they're getting older. It's Generation Z or Z, as you would say over here, right?
Yeah,
because Americans
Z,
can't speak properly.
I think they're iGen or whatever, but they're all just like,
they
I
don't
actually
give a
have
shit.
hope because they are so over it.
They're so over it, and that's the thing that scares. I think the reason why the people who've got angry at the book I've written is because they sense their power is slipping.
What has been the reaction overall?
Well, okay, so
how's it doing?
Yeah, really. I mean, it's been really well received, and it's really funny because it's been reviewed totally on partisan lines. So the people who really love it tend to be the right wing papers.
Right.
The ones that hated it were the two left wing publications. I could have predicted this.
Right.
I mean, one of them was the New Statesman. Who basically said, it's just not funny. It's just not funny. It's just the old sneering at the young. And I got loads of messages saying, did you write this? That if you honestly, it's my favorite of the reviews because it is how I would, it's exactly what I would have done if I'd have written it. But yeah, I'm really pleased with how well it's doing and how people seem to get what I'm doing. Because I'm not worried about if I was the one being mocked, if my whole worldview was being laughed at, I would hate it too.
Yeah, of course.
So they are well within their right to hate it,
of course,
to slag me off and all the rest of it. But what I find fascinating about it is it's the people who hate it have fundamentally misunderstood. And it sounds like I'm being really self-aggrandizing, saying, "Oh, you don't get how clever my satire is." It's actually such a basic misunderstanding.
Right.
It's so basic. That it's embarrassing for them. I'm embarrassed on their behalf.
And it's the thing that's, it's not like they're wrong. They're the policing of it and the insanity is insane. But yes, I understand that they want to fight for. I think that's why it's hard for me it's so easy for me to take the piss out of them. But I feel like they think they're doing this on behalf of people who are like in wheelchairs and oppressed and marginalized.
That's the problem. It is, it's good intentions, isn't it?
Well, yeah, the road to hell.
It's all good intentions. And then you see, like 15, 20 years ago, there wouldn't have been such a thing as well-intentioned authoritarianism. And now that's what we've got, right? So you've got people saying overtly racist things in the name of anti-racism. Right. You've got people transitioning very, very young children in the name of a positive thing. It's all well-intentioned. It's all good. but it's still bad.
Right.
Right.
It's so creepy. That's what I mean about the kind of upside downness of the world right now.
Well, you know that there's a famous quote by an American physicist called Stephen Weinberg. Weinberg? I think so. I might have got that wrong, but he said, might be Weisberg. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The quote is, in order for, if you know, in an ideal world, you'd have good people doing good things and bad people doing bad things. But in order to make good people do bad things, you need religion. And I think that's what's happening here. So you have, I think most of the people involved in the woke ideology are essentially good, are essentially think they're doing something that right. Who doesn't want to stand up to fascists?
Of course.
And, we all do. But the problem is that they're making it worse and they're actually helping the fascists.
Right.
Right.
And who doesn't want to stand up for people who are oppressed and might not have a voice?
That's right. But that's why I don't spend all my time satirizing the far right. Firstly, because I think they satirize themselves just by existing. But also because it's a given that we all think they're scum.
Right.
Right. I don't need to advertise the fact that I think racism is bad.
Right.
Right. I like to think people would assume that I do think that.
Yeah.
And
they don't anymore, by the way.
I know. Oh, well, I got called a racist the other day.
Yeah.
I got called a homophobe the other day. It's like, I don't know how many more men I have to sleep with to disprove that, but but that's fine. It's fun. I can keep. But that's I'm in a relationship, by the way. I'm not doing that. But it's upsetting to me that good people are trying to make our society so divisive and awful. You know, it's good people saying things like, let's have accommodation for LGBT people only. Let's have safe spaces and days where white people are expelled and only black people can be together. It's like, do you want to go back to Jim Crow?
It's weird.
Do you want people to sit at the back of the bus? They are advancing segregational ideas under the name of anti-racism. Martin Luther King said it's about the content of the character. He didn't want people judged by the color of their skin. This is anathema to him,
right?
The way that they're behaving. He would be horrified by this.
I'd like to take a quick break so we can talk about our sponsor. With stress and anxiety, many people can often feel exhausted during the day, but then it's time to go to bed and they just can't fall asleep. If worry is affecting your days and nights, it's probably also affecting your overall health. That's why we're partnering with Calm, the #1 app to help you reduce your anxiety and stress and help you sleep better. More than 40 million people around the world have downloaded it. If you head to calm.com/walkin, you'll get 25% off a Calm premium subscription, which includes guided meditations on issues like anxiety, stress, and focus, including a brand new meditation each day, Daily Calm, my favorite. There are also sleep stories, which are bedtime stories for adults designed to help you relax. And they even have soothing music and more. My favorites are the body scans. It's a way to just relax your whole body, and it takes you through, it's a guided meditation that takes you through your whole body. I also love just sometimes their nature sounds are really helpful to me. The sound of rain, the sound of just the woods, especially being in a city, it just puts me in that frame of mind of being somewhere peaceful and calm. And I know that feeling of having that restless mind and not being able to sleep at night, and the breathing exercises, just being able to focus on your breath, they instantly calm me down as well and put me in that space that calms my nervous system so that I can get a good night's rest and just be a little bit less stressed about life. I really can't say enough about this meditation app. It has changed my life and the sleep stuff. So right now, Walk-In's Welcome listeners get 25% off a Calm premium subscription at calm.com/walkin. That's calm.com/walkin, WALKIN. Get unlimited access to all of Calm's content today at calm.com/walkin. So what do you think the path forward is for those people who feel kind of the insanity on all? I feel like I'm standing in the eye of a hurricane sometimes.
It's a numbers game, right? So I think it takes people to stand up and critique it and mock it. It takes people normally who don't have much to lose.
Right.
You know, so and I feel like I'm in that category a little bit. I don't care anymore. Like I'm literally at the point where I don't care if you say the comedy clubs aren't going to book you anymore. You're not going to get this TV commission anymore. I don't care. I'm just going to, because I think being dishonest is just so self-destructive.
Yeah.
It's so bad for you and it's bad for everyone else, right?
Claire Lehman said too, we have to share the risk. You know,
sharing the risk. That's exactly what it is, right? I've lost loads of close friends as a result
too.
of saying, oh, you know, we both got similar experiences here.
Yeah.
And the danger of this is we start talking about ourselves like we're martyrs, like getting
But
up on
I'm
a cross.
not.
No,
I don't.
exactly. I'm still saying what I like, and I'm still, you know, I'm privileged enough to be able to do what I do and earn a living out of doing what I do, right? So I'm not for a second suggesting I'm a big martyr.
No. And I'm not like a victim of any kind. I chose this path. I'm on it.
So accepting the concept, accepting the fact that by being honest, some people aren't going to like you, but you know, if they don't like you for being honest, they're not really your friends anyway. And I think it is a numbers game. I think it is what Claire Lemon was saying is just about the more of us who do this, the more of us who mock this stuff, the easier it becomes for other people to do it, and then it becomes the norm. The best way to destroy authority figures is to laugh at them, and when enough people are laughing at these people, they won't want to be doing it anymore, because people become self-aware. And I think, you know, and like I say, they're not bad people. I think eventually they'll come around. I think eventually they'll realize that they're just on the wrong side of things. I hope. I don't know. Maybe I'm on the wrong side of things. Maybe everyone will be woke in 100 years' time. But I'll be dead, and I'm glad. Like I don't want to be in that world. Can you imagine? Do you know what it'd be like? It'd be like that film Demolition Man with Wesley Snipes.
I haven't seen
it.
You
should. Like it's this future utopia where if you say a bad word on the street, you get fined. This little robot
this
finds
is China. It's
exactly.
And that's what I think is the most terrifying thing to me, is not necessarily that we would be taken over by some authoritarian. It's that we're just going to slide into having this idea of a social currency be okay.
Yeah.
So that if I say retard on my podcast, now I'm fined.
Well, you just said retard there. And I said it shit. Well, you know,
and so you get fined, and now our social currency goes up or down based. I mean, this is already exists in our world.
Yeah, that's Demolition Man. You should watch it.
That's what I mean about the slippery slope. It won't necessarily be like we're under some rule. It'll be like we're police, and we already are policing each other.
Well, I don't know if we are. I mean, I don't know if you know how bad things are in the UK.
And you guys are like the canary in the coal mine.
Right.
I was obsessed with Brexit. Obsessed.
Yeah, Brexit's amazing.
Because I was like, oh, Trump's going to win. When I saw that was how I knew.
Right.
I was obsessed. I could not stop watching the coverage.
So, you know, you have the First Amendment, right? So you've got that. Which is great, although I'm sure there's a lot of people that are trying to overturn that. I would like to see that scrubbed, but you've got that, right? We don't have a written constitution. We don't have a codified constitution. You'd have thought someone would have thought to write it down.
Right.
We've got an unwritten constitution, right? And that means it's open to endless forms of interpretation, right? But the thing is, so we have a situation where now it's common police practice in the UK to investigate people who have offended other people.
Yeah.
So we had this, I don't know if you heard about this, there's a police force in Humberside who contacted someone to investigate because he retweeted a transphobic poem, which he didn't even write, he just retweeted it. And I promise you can check this out. They use the phrase, "We just have to check your thinking." Right? Again, back to Orwell. How is this not thought police? How else can you describe that? That is a deeply fucked up situation, right? And it's the stuff of comedy, surely. And the worst thing about it was when the police were challenged on it, they said, well, this is standard practice. Right? There's a website you can go on. The government's website on hate crime will tell you about hate speech and hate crime, that it is defined by the perception of the person who was offended. If I decide that you've said something and I perceive that you said it because it was motivated by homophobia, I can call the police and they are obliged to investigate it.
Whoa.
That's going on in the UK now, right? We have people
We're on our way here.
Do you think? I mean, I don't know. Do you think that's going to happen? I mean, I think
we're on our way. It's socially happening already,
right.
And so it hasn't. I don't see it. And America is a little bit different. I don't know. We're a little different in terms of the fact that there is a rebellious spirit to the country. I think.
Right.
That is you know, we rebelled against you guys.
Yeah. Well, that didn't work out. Maybe bring back monarchic rule. Maybe that's sort of.
So I think that there is a rebellion. You know, even just being in Texas, like Texas is so great. There's just this libertarian vibe, and I think that people in America, for the most part, would rather die than not be able to say whatever the F they wanted.
I also hope that, I mean, that's the case with most artists. I think if you're a true artist, you don't like being told what to say. You know?
Yeah. And I think that's why Kanye has been Kanyeing out the way that he has. He was just, Kanye is another great example of somebody who's reacting to that censorship.
Yeah, of course.
and the push to censor and the push to think a certain way and a push to agree with the approved message. I don't even think he pretty much agrees with most of the stuff. He's like a work of art in motion.
It's like, he was saying things, black people aren't supposed to support Trump. What are they talking? Because they think collectively. So they think all black people think this way, all gay people think this way. Well, they don't, right? We're all individuals.
Yeah.
We're all complex, and we need to get back to that idea, because until we do, we're going to mess up. Well, we already have messed up everything, so we need to resolve it somehow.
Who
knows?
I just wonder.
I don't know the answers. I was coming here hoping you would know all the answers.
I have no answers. I know nothing.
But you have the right questions.
I just am very curious about everything, and I'm excited that you wrote this book, Woke: A Guide to Social Justice, and everyone should buy it because it is hilarious. And it came to me, I had my heart like crushed, and it sent this book to me, and it was like I was just tearing through it because it was the first time I had really belly laughed in so long.
Oh, thank you.
And so it's truly funny. I was screenshotting it and sending it to like my favorite parts to all my friends, and my sister's like, "What is this book? I need it." And it's easy to read. It's like great to read on the beach or summer reading. I think it's
real
really
stocking filler. You can have it for
so
Christmas.
Good. It's just really well done, and all the bad poems, and
I loved writing the poems. That was really fun.
You're really talented. Really, you're a very talented writer, and
thank you.
Obviously, whoever was behind this is very intelligent. So I'm very grateful that you came. Oh, I ask the same two questions every time. What is your biggest defect of character that you have to work against in your day life or day to day?
That's a really good question, because I like to think I don't have one. But yeah, no, I've got loads. What is my biggest? I think is that I have an addictive, obsessive personality. Mm-hmm. So I think, although that's also why I get things done, mm-hmm. but by the same token, I'll do things to excess when I shouldn't, mm-hmm. And that could be anything from playing stupid games on my phone, or just drinking too much when I wanted to get stuff done, or stuff like that. I think that's something I need to battle. That's my worst trait, I think.
And what's your biggest asset other than being freaking hilarious?
I don't like being told what to think. Basically, I don't like being told what to do or what to think, and I think that's really, and actually self-doubt. Actually, I would put self-doubt pretty high in there. I think you only get better at what you do by constantly doubting yourself. You're like the people I see who are so confident, and I think it's because of my background. Like the people I know who went to like posh schools, like privately educated people, they have such confidence. They never doubt themselves, and therefore sometimes the work they produce isn't that great.
Yeah, I noticed this with people in academia in particular.
I think if you've been constantly criticized from a very early age, which I have, you've been constantly told how bad things you're doing are, that you make yourself better. And I'm like this. I'm obsessive when I write. I always redraft endlessly because I keep thinking everything I do is bad. Mm-hmm. And actually, that's why I can eventually, hopefully, produce good stuff. So that I consider a positive.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
And I'd love it if I think self-doubt is something we should all aspire to, because if it's connected to self-awareness.
Yeah.
And if people had a bit more self-awareness, then maybe we wouldn't be in the mess we're in right now.
Well, I definitely needed to have a conversation with you today and I'll probably be in regular touch, because I actually do think too it's important for people who are kind of pushing back against whatever their party might be, because I see people on the right coming a little center, and really it's defending those values that allow us to be individuals, and the most important one being free speech.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that if we all need to circle the wagons and kind of unite around that, and no matter where we're coming from.
And the other things, we should be allowed to make mistakes.
Yeah.
People should be allowed to misspeak. They should be allowed to, without being completely destroyed by people online. I mean, that's just something we need to get over and
stop doing.
Yeah. It's so awful and entitled, and I mean, let him without sin cast the first stone, right? I mean, we're all flawed.
Yeah.
Like, you could take anyone's back catalogue of things they've said and done and construct a case against them.
Oh yeah.
And what would be the point of that?
No,
stop writing people off. That's the other thing. Stop writing. I'd love it if people just stopped assuming that once you've done a bad thing, you'll never be, that's you for good. Mm-hmm. That to me is the really medieval ideology of you being tainted with this permanent sin. And I just hate that idea.
Yeah. It's very regressive.
It's really regressive. That's what it is.
It is a regressive culture.
Yeah.
in so many respects. And
Yeah.
it's very terrifying.
It is. And yet they call themselves progressives, but they're absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Well, where can we find you online?
So online, I am at Titania McGrath is my Twitter handle.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm Andrew Doyle _com on Twitter. And that's where I normally hang out, is on Twitter.
Okay.
I'm on Facebook too. So yeah, that's where you
And
can
is
check
your
me.
book available in the States?
So it's not yet. It's available on Kindle
Okay.
in the States, and it will be available in a hardback book in...
Most people get Kindle anyway.
Do they?
Now.
Oh, okay. Well,
It seems like most people are doing that.
I don't, because I'm really old-fashioned.
I do. I need the hard book.
I like the book.
I do too, because I want to underline it and I need it.
Exactly.
I need to see it. But most people I know are digital.
Well, I think it's available to pre-order, and it'll be out in September. But I've been told it could get pushed back the more people pre-order it.
Oh,
so
okay.
please do pre-order it, because I know it feels like, well, I'm not going to get it till September, but they probably pull it back if enough people do.
And it's called Woke: A Guide to Social Justice.
Yeah.
In case we didn't mention that. All right. Well, thank you for coming by.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day. It's time for the weekly check-in with Bridget and cousin Maggie. I don't even remember last week's check-in, but everybody was saying they felt bad for me.
I don't remember last week's check-in either.
Don't worry about me, guys. I'm doing fine. Apparently, my last check-in was a cry for help, and I didn't even realize it.
I obviously wasn't too worried about you.
Everyone's like, your check-in broke my heart. I'm like, what the fuck did I say on my check-in?
I don't remember it at all. I thought we laughed a lot
I
in
thought we
last
did
week's
too.
check-in.
I don't know.
Maybe we laughed darkly at the dark humor.
The darkness of life.
Yes. So you are, one of your tweets is going a little nuts.
Which one?
Your "How am I not a wife?" tweet
Oh, yeah.
with the green chef picture. Way to promote gender stereotypes, Bridget.
You're welcome. I think it's funny.
Is this what getting ratioed is like? Is that what this is?
No, I'm not really getting ratioed.
Okay.
Getting ratioed is when you have more comments than likes or retweets.
Oh, okay. So you definitely have more likes,
But somebody put that really funny the other day. They said, and I don't think a lot of people know what getting ratioed means, but it's basically when something has like 3 retweets, 5 likes, and 600 comments. It's just,
you just stir people up.
or just it's something that you say that's like a good example of one recently was when somebody did a profile on Ben Shapiro and they called him alt-right or something, or they alluded, and everybody in the comments was like, this is bullshit. He's not alt-right.
Huh.
Like, you guys, why are you saying this?
Huh.
And then they changed it. They changed the headline.
Okay.
So sometimes it's when you do something wrong. Sometimes it's when you say something stupid. A lot of the times you'll see on Twitter when we get into our dumb food takes that we love to do, people will get ratioed for saying something like, you know, a hot dog is a sandwich or whatever,
Right.
something dumb like that. No, I mean, it's a lot of comments, but I'm not ratioed yet.
Not yet.
Shocking.
Still, there's a lot of interaction on this.
I thought for
Green
sure
Chef
I'd get
post.
ratioed on my joke about how I wanted to see Jerry Falwell Jr.'s dick pics.
Most people just brushed right by that one, I think.
They're just like,
Everyone's
whatever,
like,
Bridget.
no, Bridget.
I seriously
just no.
wonder how many people out there in any given day are like, fucking Bridget.
I think
Like, how many
the
times
group
a
of
day?
people is growing. That's for sure.
I feel like I should just change my Twitter name to fucking Bridget. Like, I just feel like people shake their heads and they're like, fucking Bridget.
That girl.
It was like the one where I called everyone pussies who was
Yeah.
afraid of climate change killing them.
Yeah,
I mean,
that was fun.
something's going to kill you. It might as well be the end of the world. That's what I always say.
I always want to go out in a blaze of glory at the end of the world.
I have such intense FOMO that I'd be stoked if I knew everyone was going with me. I'd be like, this is the end of humanity. Good.
That's actually a really funny way of thinking about it. I've never thought of that before. Where you're like, well, we've all got to go sometimes. At least I have to go when everyone else does.
And now I don't have to feel like I'm missing out on like another 3,000 years of humanity.
the world will not continue rolling along without me. The world ends with me.
This ends with me. The buck stops here.
That's pretty awesome, actually. I like that. I
I don't know. I have a weird kind of relief. Maybe that is at the root of everyone thinking that the end of the world is going to be in their lifetime. It's like a hopefulness that they won't be missing out on the flow of life that will continue without them.
A deeply buried FOMO. You've uncovered something that sociologists can study now.
You know what's weird? I'm starting to be convinced that people listen to this podcast because there was, after Ness and I did our thing, there recently was a study that somebody recently put on Reddit, and then they started asking questions about if they thought wedding photographers could tell if a marriage was going to last, and it went viral.
I must have seen that because I just saw something recently about that. I was like, yeah, we've already covered that topic. And here on Walk-ins Welcome, we're ahead of the curve.
Or we're starting the curve.
Or we're starting the studies that these things are based on.
I'm not an egomaniac at all.
No, I definitely ran into
this
that.
This is just me being a trendsetter, guys. I'm starting the zeitgeist. But seriously, it is a very strange coincidence. I sent it to Vanessa, and I was like, they took our idea. Like, I'm going to have time to go back to college just so I can do a study on the facial.
Yeah, right. Whatever. You're inspiring. You inspire these things.
Someone do a study out there. For the love of God.
So what else has been going on, Bridget?
Nothing. I've been back fully into my Twitter addiction, and that's it. My calendar is empty.
Your life is ruined.
I haven't written anything. My life is destroyed again.
God damn it, Twitter.
But I have too much fun.
I know, and it's too entertaining for the rest of us.
It's too entertaining for me. I just like being feisty so much to my own detriment. Why is Lucifer trending? It's like you never know when the devil's going to be trending.
It might be the show.
That's still on?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
I think Netflix or someone picked it up.
That was a horrible...
Someone picked it up. It got canceled and then some other network took it over.
Oh, we have to give... oh, my gosh. I have to give Lauren's mom a shout out. Lauren Chen. The roaming millennial. She was on the Ben Shapiro election special with me. Oh,
that's right. You told me about this.
And apparently her mom is a huge Walk-ins Welcome fan.
Well.
And I have to find her name because I wrote it down. And just give me a minute. We have to give Lauren's mom, Tracy, a shout out. Thank you for listening to Walk-ins Welcome.
Shout out to Tracy.
Shout out to Tracy, roaming millennial's mom. And...
tell your friends.
And honestly, I want to give more of you guys shout outs. So email us. We'll give you a shout out. And we also go follow at the Lauren Chen. She is killing it and just so bright and young and smart. And stay tuned for next week. We have another. I love these young 23-year-old women that I've been chatting with. They're just so brilliant. I was not this brilliant at 23.
No.
They're all just on point and just sharp and motivated.
I was a disaster.
Oh my God. I was getting married and drunk.
I was severely depressed.
Yeah. I was a nightmare at 23. Just an absolute train wreck. And they're all just killing it. I mean, just so I'm so impressed with them. They're really, and just so smart and articulate. And Cassie Dillon next week. So stay tuned. Nice. She's another one that's just on the radar and on the rise.
Looking forward to it.
Onward and upward, guys.
Yeah.
And ladies and gentlemen and thems and she's and
once
he's
we start
and
making
theys.
T-shirts, we should start doing giveaways.
We're never going to get over
contests.
If you believe in us, art heads galore. Give us some money.
Or at the very least, listen to our podcast.
Wait, no, someone asked for the wish list again, too. I think we need to update it.
Oh, we do. We do. I was thinking about something we need to put on. Oh, that handle thing. Yeah,
that's what I was going to put on it. All right.
All right. Till next week.
Till next week when I'm in D.C. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Ritual and Calm. Ritual is the obsessively researched vitamin for women. Better health doesn't happen overnight, and right now Ritual is offering my listeners 10% off during your first 3 months. Fill in the gaps of your diet with Essential for Women, a small step that helps support a healthy foundation for your body. Visit ritual.com/walkin to start your ritual today. That's 10% off during your first 3 months at ritual.com/walkin. Just a reminder, check out the Calm app and use your Walk-Ins Welcome listener discount of 25% at calm.com/walkin. That's calm.com/WALKIN. And it includes unlimited access to all of their content. So get on that. They are the best. Tune in next week for another riveting episode that will change your life, help you get out of your own way, and solve all the world's problems. I want to thank our composer, Jared Elias, my co-producer and cousin, Maggie, and all of you out there listening. This has been Walk-Ins Welcome with Bridget Phetasy. I'm Bridget Phetasy, and you're welcome. It's the dumbest line.